Hello, hello, my family out there, my Islamic family. I just want to go over a few things, see if I can touch a few bases. I don't have a whole lot of time, but just wanted to give you an idea of where I stand somewhat. I probably, more than likely, I'll go in depth later as to the things that I'm going to comment on now, as well as some other stuff. So it's like, from what it's funny because a lot of the customs that I view as Jewish are looked upon as Islamic, and it's interesting to find, for me, how many people associate turbans, headdresses, and the long garbs, and the wearing of the beard and stuff, particularly to Islam, when those customs and practices were pre-Islamic, in the sense of they existed among the Jewish people prior to the Arabs picking up the entire. They had it too, but they didn't have all of it. But back to the Quran, I started off studying with, believe it or not, you would think I would have started off with a group of Christians, but I started off with Moabites, Melanics, FOIs. I told some people my story, and some of y'all know me. Y'all know me. Yeah, man, we had a lot of debates. That's somehow how I grew. That's a tad bit how I grew, because I had to learn that stuff. I had to figure out those answers. I had to study, or I had to convert. And I kept studying, and I kept studying, and I kept studying till it was no longer whether or not, they wanted to see whether or not I knew the truth or not. It was like, well, let's just all get along. And I like Muslims, you know what I'm saying? I was surprised by the September the 11th event, because I grew up around them. I was around them all the time, and I just didn't see that. But as it relates to the Quran, I finally read the Quran a while back, and it was interesting. And a lot of people are going to disagree with what I'm about to say, and it's all good, because this is where I stand. When I read the Quran, the first thing that what came to my mind is that this book is inspired. This book is inspired, but my question was to how. And I think there's only 3 ways it could be inspired. Either the revelation came like Muhammad, peace is upon him, said. It came, or as it is traditionally said, it came. Or somebody else wrote it and Muhammad put his name on it. And or Muhammad got the writings, or found them, or what have you, and then he just compiled them. However the case, when I read the Quran, I came to the conclusion that he got it from somewhere, and a lot of people may not feel that way. But there's truth in the Quran that nobody except for the chosen know. This I know. This I know. At least to me, that was my impression. However, from my research showed that the Quran itself was not in written form. Well, it's a debate, I should put it that way. There's a discrepancy whether or not it was an actual manuscript by the time of the Prophet's death. Not only that, but it was believed that there were like 4 versions of the Quran. You know, Dr. Ben, he speaks of it. He speaks of the councils or something or another, where they came together and agreed upon what was going to go into, just like the Bible. They agreed upon what was going to go into the Quran, and also it was like there were, at least I heard or I read, where it was Muhammad told his people that the Quran was supposed to be. Before I get there, so looking at it from that standpoint, you know, it's like also some of them believe that the current version that we have of the Quran has most, they don't believe, the traditional belief among whoever, from what I read, is that most of the writings, or most of what the Prophet said, is in the Quran, not all of it. And be that as it may, this is something else. I'm like, you know, wow, if this is true, then Islam is nowhere near where it should be. I read, or I heard, I believe I read it, more than likely I read it, because I don't hear much concerning Islam without doing research to my interest. But it said that Muhammad told the people to recite the Quran in the 7 dialects of that province or wherever he was. It was the 7 dialects of the tribes, and the people decided. The people decided, not holiness, God or Allah, no one, but the people decided that they would, because they didn't want to have any confusion, that they would just acknowledge the other 6, behold to the one. You follow what I'm saying? And when I look at that, it's like, I'm looking at that like, you know, that's like, you know, the 10 Commandments. If I just say, I'm going to take one, and the rest, I'm just going, you know, not necessarily, but you get the idea. It's like, you know what I'm saying? How can you, if the command was to recite in the 7 around the world, wherever it is carried, and you sit around and you say, well, I'm not going to do that, we're going to do this because we think this is best, you know, and when the book says Allah knows best, then I'm looking at it like, you know, they got all the whole Islamic belief system got off on the bad foot because they didn't adhere, they did not submit from the beginning. They started off not submitting. Reka, I believe it was said, to recite And that was the first command. And they didn't do it. Didn't do it. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Where would they have been had they followed the order of things? You know? And I don't want to go too deep into it. We're going to go there, though. We're going to go there, though. But I'm going to say it again. I truly don't believe that the Islamic community as a whole have a full understanding of what it is that the book was supposed to stand for. They don't have a... They missed the mark by disobeying the command. So now they're thinking they're Muslim, and they're not. You say, I know you're saying, how can I say that? Because the translation, this and that, and the third. No, you see, from my reading and from my studying, the God of Abraham is notorious for putting a message somewhere where it cannot be found by, can only be found by a select few. So, by you not following certain things or going exactly according to his plan, he will direct the message, from my experience, to the people who he desires it to come to. And I cannot imagine it coming to people who denounced it at the beginning. It's just, I know that's hard, but that's, you know, that's the truth. I might have to do this in a series. Okay, this would be part one. But before I go, I'm gonna say this, and I might have to clear up a lot of this. But it's also I read where I think it's in a hadith where, well, it was said that there would be 73 versions of the Ummah, but only 72 of them will go to hell, and only one of them will go into paradise. These are 73 versions. How many versions do you know today? How many of the dialects do you know today? Talk to me. You know, I'm going to introduce a version today, okay? This is the version of Islam that I'm going to say I stand for. I'm going to call my group of Islamic beliefs, since you have to be a Muslim to get in and believe in Islam. My belief is going to be a Quranic Islam. In other words, whatever does not agree with the Quran, be it hadith, whatever, then I do not believe it. That'll be my version of Islam. We're going to go in depth later. Life.